Welcome back to the channel, and in the tutorial today we are looking at an angled layer soap. It's a very simple technique and it's easy to achieve, but we're going to do it today with using natural colorants. Now, natural colorants are natural materials that you are putting into your oils and steeping or adding to oils that are naturally occurring, like spinach or various herbs, spices, things like that, that are going to impart a color into the soap. Now, for this particular soap, I chose 5 colorants, some of them because they are so well known and it would be good to use them. Others that are maybe not so quite known to people that haven't been soaping for a while or non-soapers. And then there's particularly one in there which has a really interesting property that I wanted to experiment with. So what we've got in the first jug here is rhubarb root powder. We then have alkanet root. Turmeric powder is in the next one. And then we have annatto seeds, and we have spirulina powder. Now, I'm going to tell you how I steeped those in a little bit, but I want to check out this first powder first, which I'm just adding the lye to here, and that is the rhubarb root powder, because it's actually quite an interesting additive to use in your soaps because it is reactive with bases. And if you look at the brown we had in the pot, and now I'm stirring it, it's turning pink. This is the wonderful thing with rhubarb powder. Anything that it comes into contact with, be acid or lye or base, it will change the color of the oil. So this oil was sludgy brown to start with. As soon as the lye hit it, it became this wonderful pink color. Now, it does subdue a little bit when you go through saponification, but it's strong enough to actually come through and create quite a pretty lightish pink, and it's a really natural colorant. So I'm kind of really interested with this one, and I want to see whether there's other things we can do with it to create different looks with it. So this was a bit of an experiment, but it worked out quite nicely. And I basically got all of these additives from a company called G. Baldwin in the UK. They specialize in products like this, and you can get them in nice small quantities. So 25 grams was the smallest size they did because I didn't want it hanging around. And then you can see, look at that pink color from a brown oil. It's amazing. Now I have stick blended this. Look at that. There we go. That's the original color of the oil. And we've got that beautiful pink color from it. Natural colorants are amazing in some of the things they do, and that's why I was really interested in using them. So whilst I pour this into the mold here, I'm going to go through how I actually achieved an infused oil the quick way. Now, the way that I infused these oils, so we're working with oil infusions here, and because I'm doing a little bit of a test here, I wanted everything to be pretty much the same. Each of these oils was 225 grams of oil with 25 grams of each of the various products. So the 25 grams of the turmeric powder or 25 grams of the annatto seeds. Each one had the same amount by weight to oil, which meant that I could work out how much colorant I was getting out of them. And then what I did is I took those and I popped them into screw top jam jars. And I popped those jam jars then into a slow cooker, and I basically heated these oils up quite gently on the lowest setting. And then once it was kind of up to temperature and everything was in there nicely, I let the oils steep in that kind of water bath for 4 hours. Just check them every now and again to make sure they were okay. And this is what I got from that. Now, you don't have to use that method if you want to still get infused oils, but if you want to do it a more natural way without using a water bath, what you need to do is just do exactly the same. Pop the amount of the product that you want to infuse into the oil, put it in the jar, and then just leave it. You're going to basically mix that oil every day or every other day for about 4 weeks, and you're going to then pull out the properties of that. What I have done as a little bit of an extra experiment on this is I have refilled each of my jars with another amount of oil, and I'm just allowing the pre-used stuff that I had in the jars, whether it be the turmeric powder or whatever it was, to infuse back into the oils and see whether I get an additional amount of colorant out of it or whether it's any different. So we can do a little bit of a comparison to see whether you throw those away or whether you can just keep steeping them and for how long. And next up we have annatto seed oil. And again, these have all been infused for exactly the same amount of time. And we get this beautiful kind of orange, this deep orange color out of these annatto seeds. But you do find that they actually then mellow down into between an, a yellowy orange and then quite a mid-toned orange. So it's in that kind of yellowy orange family. Now, in order to actually use these oils, I had to use one of the oils from my recipe to infuse them with. So I've used Light in Colour olive oil because it's the most amount of oil of any one oil I use within my soaps. So it gave me the most amount of colourant available per layer. And then what I had to do is work out the individual amounts that I needed for each layer and then use either a full replacement or a partial replacement for that olive oil with the infused olive oil. So because I did 5 layers like this, I could use an entire portion replacement rather than using a partial replacement. You don't have to use olive oil for infusing. You can use any liquid oil to infuse into, but because olive oil has the biggest quantity usually, I'm not saying always because different recipes are obviously individual, but you can infuse into any oil that you want to, but maximize it by using the biggest quantity of oil, of liquid oil in any one family, be that olive oil, or maybe you're using a liquid coconut fractionated oil, which is liquid at room temperature. You could use that. You could use apricot kernel. I'd stick away from something like castor though, because the viscosity of it is a little bit too thick, and I think it would hinder pulling out the colorants rather than keep it there. And also, you're using castor in a very small amount, usually only up to about 5% in a recipe. So go with the olive oil, and there we go. Look, you can see the annatto seed oil versus the colour it turned. So it's lightened slightly, and it will continue to lighten as it goes through saponification. So let's get this layer in, and we'll come to our next colorant. And you've seen I've swapped them around a little bit there. I just was looking at how they worked in the mold. And the next colorant up is spirulina. Now, spirulina is available in a lot of places very cheaply. I got this one off of Amazon. So you can find these things on places like Amazon and stuff. And I'd always seen spirulina as an additive to soap. So you can add spirulina in its ground form, in its powder form, into your soap batter, stir it through, and you'll get a slightly exfoliating or a mildly exfoliating soap of a green colour. But I wanted to see whether the spirulina powder would infuse into an oil, and whether that infused oil would then give us a different sort of colour, or whether it would actually infuse at all. So my little experiment on this one for the spirulina will go in when we get this this previous layer sorted. So as you can see in the mold here, while we get this this mixed up, all I'm doing is I'm taking each layer and pouring it at the same angle in the mold hole you can see here, but I'm turning the mold around 180 degrees each time. So it's going to give me basically a stepped layered soap. Very simple. You don't need a special machine to do this. You can use a towel, you can use some playing cards, anything just to basically lean your mold at an angle. And as long as you try and get the same angle each time, you'll get a nice angled soap. So this is the spirulina powder, and it causes quite nice green, but in the final soap, you'll actually see that it becomes, I'm going to say like a neon lime, something that's quite light, still in the green scope, but could be a yellow in the right circumstances with the right colours around it. So this again is a really interesting way of doing it, and you could always deepen that colour. Here's the spirulina powder in its oil, and you can see how dark and deep green that is compared to this kind of like lime yellow that we've created. So again, nice experiment to do here with these colorants and with these colors to see what we're going to get at the end of it. So let's get this into the mold while it's still fairly fluid. And then that will settle out into a nice layer. So you can see with the first couple of soaps, I had to scrape it a little bit down. Over stick blending is always a thing you can do. Even the most experienced soaper will at some point over stick blend them. Really interesting things on some of the forums I've been reading, and people asking about how do I stop my soap accelerating. And the best thing you can do is learn how to spot emulsion, not trace, but emulsion. So when your stick blender comes out of the oil, out of your oil and lime mixture, and it coats the bell of the blender, and it doesn't break apart, it doesn't craze, it doesn't look like it's splitting back out into oil and water. Once it's become that homogenized mass, you stop. You need to stop what you're doing, stop stick blending, stop doing anything to it, and do a couple of sessions where you work with your soap batter at that stage and wait for it to come to the trace that you want. What that will do is two things for you. It'll allow you to see how long your batter takes to trace when it's just an emulsion. And it'll also mean that you learn to wait for your batter to get ready, not make it ready for when you want it. So our final jug of oil is Alkanet root. Now, this is a fantastic colour in the jug here. It's absolutely amazing, and I was very excited by this one. So Alkanet root will give you a kind of purpley through to blue. Now, bearing in mind that I was replacing the portion of my oil I required from my recipe. Now, there you go. There it is without the lye in it, and there it is with the lye in it. And you can see how it's kind of gone from that reddy colour into a purpley blue colour. We're just going to bring this right through to an emulsion, right through emulsion into trace now, and get ready to pour this one. Again, you can see the mould has just been flipped over 180 degrees. And I think this, for me, had the most striking change of colour that I wasn't expecting. I was expecting the rhubarb root powder to change because I'd seen it happen. I'd seen people using it. It's been used a lot recently. But this particular one, from the original colour I got, which was released very quickly from the root, when we see the final soaps, I think you will be just as surprised as I was to see what happened to it. So we've got this lovely purple colour coming in here. Let's get this into the mould and see what the final colour does for us. Quick tip here. If you want to get the rest of this batter into your mould easily, quickly, without too much mess, turn the mould away from you and scrape into the mould from the jug, and you will actually get more of it in, and you'll actually cause yourself less mess. So we're on to our final oil here, and this is turmeric. Turmeric powder infused into the oil and then strained. This one took the longest, and as you can see just on the right hand side of the screen there, it's still going nearly 24 hours later. So it's a very, very fine powder, and it was well worth putting this through the filter paper because the clarity of this colorant is brilliant. This didn't really change color very much. In fact, I think it's gone slightly darker as it's sat around, and it stayed at this really beautiful kind of earthy orange color. That's the only way I can describe it. I don't think you can get a color like this using micas or any sort of synthetic colorant. I think this color is unique to turmeric. People love it, and turmeric's very good for your skin and all of those things, if you wish to believe all of that. I believe it is. Again, these soaps will just get you clean. That's all we can really state about them, unless we want to get them tested. But as far as a colorant goes, turmeric is absolutely wonderful. Now, I do want to give paprika a go in the same vein because it has that real kind of depth of color, and see what we get out of it. So you'll see from that kind of orangey colour we originally had, which you can see just on the right-hand side of the screen there, through to this kind of wicked orange colour, but it mellows. Again, it goes through saponification, and like a lot of colorants, they go weirdly coloured at first, and then they settle back in and they settle back down into a beautiful colour. So again, if you're using colorants like this, here we go, from one to the other. So if you're using colorants in this way, it's always important that you test them first to make sure you know what it's going to do. Because the last thing you want is spend lots of money on lots of ingredients and for a colorant to do something weird at you. So always test things out before you throw them into a huge batch. But I think turmeric is a wonderful ingredient for colorants, and any of the additional benefits that it may or may not have are only a bonus, I think. So what I did with all of these soaps as well is I'm giving coconut milk powder a go. So rather than using a tin of coconut milk, now I only do very small batches, and to open up a tin of coconut milk, if I wasn't making something and using it all up in one sitting, I felt that I was going to waste it. So I've got some coconut milk powder in, and I'm giving that a go within the soaps as well. So rather than using fresh or tinned coconut milk, I'm using something like this. So again, milks are very good within soap, and I'm just giving them a go. So here is our turmeric layer going on the top. Now we are going to gel this, so we're going to put it into CPOP, and we'll bring it out tomorrow, and we'll see whether all of these colorants have survived saponification, whether we've had any changes to them, and just kind of review whether we've got a good looking soap here. So we'll get this one done overnight, and we'll come back for the cut. So we're back for our cut, and we're going to use my, doesn't look it, but it is a new single bar cutter here. I'm only doing little soaps, and I thought this would help. One thing I did have with this one is the base was broken, hence the gaffer tape. But gaffer tape is the source of all wonder in a theatre, and it does fix a multitude of sins. So we're going to now cut into our angled bar, and the first thing you can notice is there's not very much green where the spirulina is. It didn't go green, it went yellow. So it's good to do tests on things like this because you never know quite what colours you're going to get. So let's cut our first bar here. And you can see that rhubarb root powder, from its sludgy brown start, has actually become a beautiful light fleshy pink. It's really a beautiful colour, so very pleased with that one. And let's have a look at our first bar here. I'll bring it back in a second. And there we go. Now, you can see on this one, we've got all our colours. So we've got our rhubarb root powder in the top there, which is that lovely kind of pinky coral. We have annatto seeds, which is giving us that orangey yellow. Spirulina powder's come out with this limey green for some reason. Alkanet root, I want to try that again because there's definitely some purple in there, but there was maybe not enough colorant in it. And the turmeric powder kind of speaks for itself, really. So those were the colorants that I used and how they've come out in the final cut. There we go, and that is the angled soap with natural colorants. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. It really helps me grow and allows me to make more videos and tutorials for all of you. When you subscribe, don't forget to click the bell icon to get notified when a new video is uploaded. And thanks a lot, Soapsters. I'll see you again next time.